Hello and welcome to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Mel and I am a yarn dyer living on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. And if you are a returning viewer, then welcome back. And yeah, today is another kind of topical video, and because it is the first few days in January, I'm not entirely sure which day it is because we're still in that confusing time. It is time for my Make 9 knitting projects for 2023. I have kept it to 9 projects this year as well. I think last year I had a few extras thrown in there at the end. So I have a big basket full of yarn to show you different projects that I have lined up and I would like to get to this year. Though there's no kind of pressure there if they don't get done, because I'm sure they'll get done at some point. So I will pop up the patterns on the screen for you to see the designs, and I will show the yarns that I plan to use with them. I'm hoping to knit pretty much all from stash this year, unless there's something I'm short of, maybe it's one ball or something like that. So hopefully I will be able to do that, and I certainly have enough yarn to be able to do the Make 9. I'm not planning on showing these in any particular order, it's whatever comes first to me basically. So when I was at Perth Festival of Yarn, formerly known as Perth Festival of Yarn and is now the Scottish Festival of Yarn, I bought a fair amount of yarn, and I bought these 3 skeins from, dropping them, Iolay Yarns, which is a Scottish yarn company. I am dropping these everywhere. They are very floppity because they are a 70% baby alpaca, 20% silk, 10% cashmere, and I have dropped a skein. One moment. I bought 2 skeins in one shade, which is this lovely coppery colour, but there was only 2 skeins, so I bought a 3rd skein in a similar colour. You can't really see it very well on camera, but it is a slightly lighter shade. The project I plan to make is the Breathing Spaces sweater by Vera Valimaki. Let me check. Yes, the Breathing Space sweater by Vera Valimaki. So I'm going to use obviously the 2 darker shades where there is more yarn needed for, and the stripes, the contrasting stripes in the lighter shade. So it'll be a fairly subtle, lightly striped sweater, which I think will look really nice. It'll be a nice kind of a going out sweater, I think, too. So that is first on the list for the Make 9. Next up is a pattern by Melody Hoffman, and it is the Linden Cardigan. Now this one, you actually need to subscribe to her Patreon to get the pattern, but if you only just want the pattern, you can just do like 1 month subscription to get it. It is a really bonny pattern that I wish to make with this yarn, which is again bought from the festival formerly known as the Perth Yarn Festival, now known as the Scottish Yarn Festival, and the yarn is by Ginger Twist Studios. If it will focus, will we focus? Well, there we go, Ginger Twist Studios. And the design is a very simple v-neck garter stitch cardigan with a kind of a vertical stitch pattern in it, which is really interesting and nice. And I did want a fairly plain pattern to use this yarn for, to really show up the different tones in the semi-solid. I didn't want it to kind of get lost. I want to be able to show all that variation, so I think this will work really quite well. I'm just hoping there's enough yarn because I only have 3 skeins, but if I leave the cardigan relatively cropped, not overly long, which I think the design is anyway, then I think I should be fine. Next up is a design by Andrea Mowry, and it is the Pink Fizz sweater. And this one really wasn't on my radar when it first came out. I figured it was a pieced sweater, and I don't really do pieced knitting if I can avoid it. And it just, I don't know, the idea of it just didn't really appeal, the construction method. But I spoke to a friend who lives on the island who had made it. We were out at a social night and she was wearing her knitted version of it, and it was beautiful. And I asked her about it, and she said it was actually knit in the round. There's only the part where you are separating for the sleeves where you are actually knitting it flat back and forth. So I thought, oh, I might consider it then. So I decided to use some of my own hand dyed yarns for this one, and the colourway is called Yuletide Felicitations, which was a Christmas colourway I came out with a couple of years ago, and it's got shades of kind of a plummy pink and gold and green speckles in too. In fact, I have a cake, skein caked up here, which kind of shows that it is very much a white yarn with the different shades in it and just kind of lightly speckled. And I plan to hold it double with just undyed mohair silk together, and it'll be a very fluffy with hints of colour sweater, which is pretty much as the design is in the original photographs too. So that is Pink Fizz by Andrew Mowry. One of the advantages with dyeing your own yarns is that if you make a colourway that you really love, it means that you can dye some for yourself. Or if you do a limited edition yarn, you can also keep some back for yourself too. And this is what happened this summer. I did a collaboration club with the Perth Festival, formerly known as Perth Festival of Yarn, based upon the Hit Parade albums, singles and so on. And I had chosen Hounds of Love by Kate Bush, coincidentally many months before actually Stranger Things came out, but it just fell just right. And I love the colourway so much, so I kept 2 skeins of the fingering weight yarn, and I also kept 3 skeins of the fluff base, the mohair nylon base, with all these pinks and plums and lilacs and the odd kind of a dark chocolatey brown. So what I decided to use is the fluff held double with another of my hand dyed yarns that I kept back again quite a long time ago, and it is in the colourway Carnations. So I'm going to hold these together to make another sweater. I have 3 skeins of each of these colours, and the design that I decided to use is a relatively new design by Caitlin Hunter called the Halloo sweater, which is a v-neck done, an unusually constructed v-neck sweater with a lacework yoke, and I do love a lacework yoke, and this one has lace and bobbles in it, and because of the yarns held double, it's more of a chunkier, not chunky, but it's a slightly heavier weight garment than the current project, lacework project that I'm working on, which is another one of Caitlin Hunter's designs. The Zweig is in a fingering weight, but this is obviously going to be heavier, more like a DK weight. Of course, I'm not just knitting my own hand dyed yarns. I'm going to have to try and take, maybe I can get away without taking these out the plastic bag. I'll just try not to rustle it too much. I would like to knit the, most likely the Chestnut Cardigan by Marie Wallen in lots of different colours of Shetland yarn that I bought, some in Shetland and some at home in Orkney in autumnal colours. The Chestnut Cardigan is an all over colourwork Fair Isle sweater, or cardigan rather. My other options are the Orkney Cardigan, again by Marie Wallen, or something random made up, which is not always a possibility, but most likely the Chestnut. And you can see the kind of autumnal colours. We've got coppery colours and greens and earthy browns and golds and so on. The only thing I'm short of, because the Chestnut is kind of like it's got a lot of beige in it. Also, I saw a cardigan whilst I was in the Shetland wool shop in Shetland this summer, which had mostly a beige background with different autumnal colours in the colourwork. I need to get that kind of an oatmeal-y beigey colour for the background colours. What I was thinking of is, I think I have enough roving in kind of oatmeal colours, or certainly enough roving to blend an oatmeal colour to be able to spin the yarn that I need to go alongside these other colours. It would be good, especially if I have more Shetland roving. I know I have some, but I'm not 100% convinced there's enough, but possibly with all the other colours added there might be enough weight of yarn, but we shall see. Apologies if the camera angle has changed slightly. I just caught the camera going to let the cat in the living room. Everybody wants to be in here today because it is quite chilly, and that's why I'm sitting huddled by the fire to try and keep warm. It's not that cold. I think I'm just feeling the cold a bit today. So I'm down to mostly the last bag of yarn. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's because I have some smaller projects in here. So a while back, a good few years back now, I bought some yarn from Old Maiden Aunt in the colourway Dreek on a merino nylon stellina base with the intention of knitting a shawl, and it is the Silver Leaves shawl by, bear with me because I haven't checked this, I'm not very organised this morning, I have to say. It is the Silver Leaf rather than Silver Leaves shawl by Lisa Haynes. Haynes, I think it is. And it is obviously a shawl. It is a garter stitch triangular shawl with a leaf motif on one end, and it is knit sideways. So from that point it gets bigger, 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 bigger till it reaches the widest point. I used a small amount of this for a shawl design by Helen Stewart this past year, and I have the perfect amount left, yardage apparently, for the Silver Leaf shawl, and it was bought for that purpose. I just kind of eked out a little bit that I needed extra for the other shawl. So that is the first and one of only a few accessories on this list. I just have to show you this because I have a basket on the table beside me, and you know, when you leave a basket when there's a cat in the room and suddenly you have a cat in a basket because they just can't resist. So we're getting down to the last few pieces of yarn now and the last few projects. Next up we have the Gaudet cardigan. There is a Gaudet sweater, but I'm knitting this cardigan by Julie Knits in Paris, and I have a couple of options for the colourwork. I'm either going to use one of my own hand-dyed yarns in the colourway Maypole, again from Stash, or I'm going to use this skein of yarn, which is upside down, by Pixie Yarn in the colourway Away with the Fairies. Both of these are in merino nylon base. This one a high twist, this one not. This one obviously has more colours in it than Maypole has, and if I use the Maypole I will likely use botanical yarns because it's botanically dyed, so I'll use a botanically dyed background colour, and if I use this one I will use an acid dyed base because I do both. I haven't decided, and I can't really decide on the background colour yet either. I'm thinking maybe a dark purple, like a dark violet, especially with this one. Possibly even with this one because it doesn't really have violet in it. There's only a couple of little bits where you have a bit of crossover in the dye, and with using a colour that isn't already in the yarn contrast, it means that every colour in the contrast yarn will pop, as opposed to if I did say a blue background for this, then the blue would kind of disappear in the colourwork. Same with if I did this one, I would want to choose a colour that isn't already in the skein. So that is the Gaudet cardigan by Julie Knits in Paris. Next up is another accessories pattern, and it is the Wishmaker Mitts by Erica Hooser, and it is a wristies design rather than mittens with a picture of dandelion pom-poms on it, and we have a cat jingling their bell. I plan to use shades of green and cream with hints of a kind of gold and bronze in the cuffs, in the colourwork bits on the cuffs. But what I'm going to do is use leftover bits from doing the colourwork with the chestnut cardigan to do that. So I don't have a separate ball of yarn for that because I'll just be using scraps for those tiny little wee bits that it's needed for. The main wristies themselves will be in this green with this undyed for the white parts, the dandelion pom-poms basically. So that is the Wishmaker mittens. And the final design that I would like to do, and it's kind of almost festive, but I'm hoping to not make it too festive, and it is the Overgrown cardigan by Anna Johanna. And I fell in love with this as soon as I saw it on her Instagram in the colours of the original photos that she showed in the snow, and it's beautiful. It is a mid kind of a grey background with colourwork, and it is, although it's an all over colourwork cardigan, it's not as intricate as doing a Fair Isle, which has colourwork pretty much on every single row. I'm not entirely sure if Fair Isle has to have colourwork on every row. I'm not sure on that, but this one definitely doesn't. And the reason I don't have the yarn to show is because, again, I'm going to use random balls of yarn that I pull from stash, or bits of part finished balls that I've used for other projects. And the background colour, I think I have a sweater quantity of Drops Fable in a mid grey that I bought several years ago for a different cardigan with colourwork in the yoke, which I'm not bothered about knitting anymore, but I still have the sweater's quantity of yarn that I can use for the background colour. And again, it's of the very similar shade of grey to the original design, or certainly close enough that it will work for it. So I think that's all of the projects that I have on my Make 9 for this year. Obviously there are other things that I want to knit this year other than what is on my Make 9, but these are certainly the ones that I'm kind of most excited about making over the next 12 months. There are projects which I already have lined up to cast on in the next, I would say in the next 2 or 3 weeks, which I'd planned on sort of like over the winter when I did my plans for winter knitting video. Willow, are you making a right noise? Come and say hello. This is Willow, and she's making a racket on the table beside me. So I'm planning to knit the Librarian cardigan by Elias Skandia. That's all ready to go as soon as I cast off the current project I'm working on, and also another designer, Melody Hoffman's, the Wild Posy sweater. Again, that's kind of ready to go. And I think there's another one, and there's a pair of fancy lacework socks that I want to knit too. So I do have other projects, but these are kind of like the main ones I'm really looking forward to producing throughout the year. So I'm going to leave this video here, and I will be back next week with another regular podcast episode. So until then, bye bye.